Hello everyone, happy Easter. Thanks for tuning in to today's first video on your Easter Sunday. We're doing part 3 of our summer analogues for today's first video for your viewing entertainment on this Easter Sunday. Later on today, we're going to have the GWV Sunday Roundup. As always, on a Sunday, we have your eclectic mix of this and that for your Easter Sunday viewing pleasure. And then this evening, or well, around 6-7 o'clock, we are going to be giving away the prize. So all week, starting this last Sunday, we've been running a prize draw competition at GWV in association with metcheck.co.uk, Weather Instrumentation. We are giving away the combined weather dial, and this is a thermometer, barometer and hydrometer all in one lovely looking and compact unit. It's an outdoor device. It's worth $39.95, and in a few hours time somebody will be winning this prize. So you've only got a few more hours to enter, and I'll talk you through how to enter in a moment. But we're going to be closing this at 5 o'clock this afternoon, because it's going to take a couple of hours to get everybody's entrance together. We've had a huge response this year, by far the biggest ever response that we've ever had. So we're going to get everybody's entries together when we close the competition at 5 o'clock. A name will be picked out of the bag at random in a video that will be placed on this competition page at 7 o'clock this evening. And there'll also be a written post, so even if you can't watch the videos, don't worry, you will still know who has won this prize. And somebody is going to win it later on today. So you've got to be in it to win it. I'll talk you through how to do that in a second. So a big day coming up at GWV, but kicking it all off is part 3 of our analogue. So just say it's going to be quite a long video. You can't watch it all in one go. Don't worry. It will be placed on the summer updates and forecast page later on today with a written summary to go with it. Just talk you through everything that we're going to discuss in the video. This is probably the most outside the box type analogues update that we've ever done. It's inspired by our good friend Richard Trott. So Richard came up with the idea for this analogues update. Myself and James Acril, my analogues guru, chewed it over, and we thought, yeah, it's an interesting idea. And actually, if you've got any sort of ideas that you would like to submit for sort of analogues that we could look at, then we're always open to your ideas, and all you have to do for that is either post in the comment box at GWV or email GWV@gmail.com, or maybe post at YouTube. And if we think it's a viable possibility and we have got the time to slot it in, then we're always happy to do that if we can. So big thanks to Richard for inspiring this very unusual analogues update. A big thank you to James for supplying us with the analogues as always. Right, so I think that pretty much sums everything up. I'm just going to tell you about the competition. So we are giving away the weather dial, the combined weather dial, the climate combined weather dial. This is it. This is what we're giving away. It's an outside temperature recording instrument, but it also records and will tell you what the air pressure is doing, and it will also show to you what the humidity is as well. So it's a thermometer, barometer and hydrometer all in one unit. You've got until 5 o'clock this evening to enter the prize draw. Now, to do this, all you have to do is email GWV@gmail.com, or you just fill out the contact form just here, putting your name and address into the your message box just there. Let me type it. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else whatsoever. That will automatically enter you into the prize draw. And then, as I say, we're going to close the prize draw at 5 o'clock this evening. So, going to be quite strict about that. We can't go any way beyond 5 o'clock, because it can take so long to bring everybody's entries together. We had so many of them this year. So 5 o'clock will be the deadline, will be the cut-off. Have to be in by 5 o'clock. We can't go even a minute over, I'm afraid, this year. So 5 o'clock will be the cut-off. We'll draw a name out out of a bag at random. That person will be winning this prize. All runner-ups will get a exclusive discount code worth 15%. I'll give you that in the winners video, and also post it here on the competitions page. You're entitled to a 15% discount code, and that will entitle you to 15% off any metcheck.co.uk weather instrumentation product for the next 2 weeks, starting today, well, like this evening, tonight, and running through into the following 2 weeks. So any product you might want to buy at MetCheck, you get 15% off for entering this competition, and I'll give you that exclusive code when we get through to this evening and we do the winners video and written post. And good luck to everybody who has entered. So let's get on with our Analogues update then. And as I said, we're doing something really quite unique and different for today's Analogues update, because what we're going to look at is it is Easter Sunday, of course, and it's quite a rare day today, actually, not because it's Easter Sunday, but because Easter Sunday is falling on the 1st of April. So, I say it was our good friend Richard Trott who came up with this idea to look at past years where Easter Sunday has fallen onto the 1st of April, so you combine Easter with the first day of April, and then look at the summers that follow. And this is quite interesting because there aren't that many years at all where certainly going back to the 1850s, where Easter Sunday has fallen on the 1st of April, when you combine first day of April with Easter Day. Can you believe there's only been 7 of these years, back to the 1850s, and even more remarkable is that the last time this happened was in 1956. So really quite a bizarre sort of occurrence we've got for this Easter Sunday this year, and so this has inspired us to have a look at some analogues for years where Easter Sunday happened to fall on the 1st of April, and the summers that followed those Easters. So this is how the pressure pattern is going to be looking today. I'm recording the video on Thursday evening as you're watching it on Sunday, but we won't deviate much from this chart that the GFS is showing on Thursday evening for Easter Sunday. So this is how this year's 1st of April 2018 Easter Sunday chart will be looking. A cold chart with high pressure blocking up to the north and pushing the winds down from the north and from the northeast as well. Now, just before I get on with the analogues, you may be interested to know how the day of Easter is worked out, because it's, of course, it's not a fixed day. It's not like Christmas, which is always a fixed date. So Easter, according to the Gregorian calendar, Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon that occurs on or after the 21st of March, which is spring equinox, of course. So thus, the date of Easter falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So essentially, Easter can never be any earlier than the 21st of March. I'm not sure when the final date is that Easter can be. I think it's sometime in the middle third week of April, perhaps. But that's how it's worked out anyway. It's based on both solar and lunar influences. So I thought I'd throw that little bit of information your way, because I know a lot of people do wonder exactly how the day of Easter is worked out, and that is how they do it. And big thank you to Richard Trott for sending that through as well. Richard really is a wealth of knowledge. So, the first year, we've only got 7 years where this has happened, what is happening today. The first year where Easter Sunday happens to fall on the first day of April is the year of 1866. And this is how the pressure map looked for 1866. This is from the Historic Archive of Charts at weathercentral.de. Their archive is now going back to, I think goes back to 1851 or 1850. It goes back further than it did. I think it's 1851. This is how things were looking on Sunday, the 1st of April, 1866, Easter Sunday. Quite a chilly looking chart with below average heights, low pressure essentially over the UK, and pulling down quite a cold sort of northwesterly wind with high pressure through the central part of the Atlantic. The ever-present Azores high is there, but it's well away from us. So quite a chilly, showery day, probably bringing wintry showers to northern parts of the country. So what happened during the summer of 1866? Well, this has been reanalysed by our good friend James Ackwell, and these are how the analogues look. So this is June 1866, where we have a deep area of below average heights through the UK and into northern Europe as well, which sends the jet stream through like that. June 1866 would have been a very unsettled month. This is July 1866. Looks pretty cool. We get a ridge close to Iceland with below average heights to our south, to our southeast too. And that means we're doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. So perhaps not quite as wet as it is in June, but it would have been a very cool month with winds generally from the north. And then this is how August 1866 looks. And this is an absolutely awful chart because we've got above average heights blocking around Greenland and this deep area of below average heights almost stuck right over the top of the UK and Western Europe. The jet stream is on a southerly track. That's a very autumnal looking chart for August 1866. And so the summer that follows this Easter day falling on the 1st of April 1866 looks like this. This is how the summer of 1866 looks, and it's a very unsettled summer indeed, with below average heights around Greenland and Iceland, above average heights I should say around Greenland and Iceland, and below average heights over to the north and to the east of the UK, which leaves us on the cool side of the jet stream, and that looks like a very poor summer in 1866. The next year is 1877. So again, this is the 1st of April, 1877, Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday coinciding with the first day of April. This is a much better looking chart. We've got low pressure, yes, over Scandinavia, but we've got the Azores high very, very close to us, which should be giving us a reasonable amount of dry and fairly mildish sort of weather as well. I mean, it is the 1st of April, so it's nothing to get overly excited about, but certainly a much better looking chart compared to the chart from 1866. So how did the summer of 1877 fare? Well, this is how June looks. This is the June that follows the 1st of April, Easter Sunday falling on the same day. So this looks like a nice month actually. We have above average heights to the east and southeast of the country. That's high pressure with below average heights in the Atlantic. And I assume this is a really quite a pleasant pleasant start to summer. Really, we're bringing up the air from a southerly direction. There's a ridge quite close to us, so I see no reason why that should have been a very nice month indeed in June 1877. But just look what happens in July. It all goes horribly wrong as an area of above average height sets up to the south of Greenland, and we bring these areas of below average heights just through the UK. So after that decent start to summer, I think by the time you get through to July, it's very much going down the pan as it turns really unsettled in July 1877. And then that sets us up for August 1877, which comes out with a blocking signal around Greenland and then the below average heights underneath it. And yes, we send the jet stream through like that as well. Overall, the summer of 1877, despite the fact we start off not too bad in June, comes out as a very unsettled summer with below average heights stuck up over the UK and much of northern Europe, and a blocking signal, never a good sign around Greenland. The next year is 1888. So interestingly, many more of these Easters occurring with the 1st of April, Easter Sunday occurring on the 1st of April, many more of these years in the Victorian era, in the 1800s, and far fewer of them in more recent years. So this is how April the 1st, Easter Sunday, looks in the year of 1888, when we have the ridge out to the west of the UK, below average pressure to the south. That looks probably mostly dry, but it would be quite cold, I think, and maybe wintry showers in the north and the east, and I would assume some pretty hard overnight frost as well. What about the summer of 1888? So this is how June looks in 1888, with below average heights to the southwest, and a blocking signal up to the northeast around Scandinavia. So that's probably quite an unsettled month, maybe quite a thundery month, but I would assume a fairly mild month as well, quite a warm month, because the air, you would imagine, is coming up from the continent. So probably very unstable, very thundery, but probably quite warm. But then here we go again, after that maybe not too bad a start to summer that we have. In June 1888, it all goes horribly wrong in July, with yet again that blocking signal emerging around Greenland, and yes, we have that deep area of below average heights underneath it over the UK and Western Europe, with jet stream on a southerly track too. It's about as bad as you can get in July 1888, and then we go through to August 1888, which isn't quite as bad. We do still have a bit of a blocking signal around Greenland. We have the below average heights still there in the Atlantic and close to the UK, not as deep as in July, and a little bit of a ridge setting up to our south, which is hopefully starting to pull up some warmer winds from the south. So, I mean, we're not talking about anything to be overly excited about, but August 1888 is a big improvement, I think, on July 1888, which is really quite a terrible month. Overall, the summer of 1888 looks like that. It looks like another really poor summer overall, with, again, quite a strong blocking signal to the north, below average heights to the south. You know what that means. It's an unsettled and relatively cool summer overall. A long gap then from 1888 to 1923. So the next year, where Easter Sunday occurs on the first day of April, is 1923. This is how it looked on the first day of April, Easter Sunday, 1923, with a Scandinavian high and the wind coming in from the east. Wasn't a particularly cold easy, but a relatively mild easy, certainly in terms of the upper air temperatures. I suppose it might have been a little bit colder on the surface. What about the summer of 1923? Well, June has this area of below average heights to our east, and then it has above average heights out to the west. So really quite a dry month, because we're blocking off the Atlantic, but a fairly coolish month as well in June 1923. July 1923 looks like that, with above average heights to our south through there, or near normal heights, I suppose you would say, and then below average heights up to the north, which brings us through a westerly flow rather like that. And then we go through to August 1923, which looks like really quite a autumnal month indeed, with below average heights to our north and sending through quite a strong westerly flow and jet stream from off the Atlantic like that. Looks a very unsettled month in August 1923. And the overall summer for 1923 looks like that. We have a deep area of below average heights to our east and northeast, with above average heights out to the west. So probably not as wet a summer as we see in our previous analogues that we just looked at, but a relatively cool summer nonetheless in the summer of 1923, but we have just there. So overall, even though we have quite a warmish spell in July of 1923, the overall pattern for this summer. And particularly so in August, which I've gone back to, is very, very unsettled indeed. And it's a relatively cool, relatively unsettled summer, although it does have a warmer spell in July. Our next year is 1934, not many more years to go now. So this year, where we have April the 1st coinciding with Easter Sunday, shows quite a strong blocking signal, interestingly, with a lot of high pressure sitting up to the north and really quite a long fetch easterly wind. That must have had a real chill to it, because if you follow the isobars back, the air is originating from there. And whilst it is modified by this point of the year, talking about the 1st of April, so it will be modified to some degree. That's a very long fetch easterly, so that would have been really quite a cold easterly wind, probably bringing in snow flurries at least to the eastern side of the country. What about the summer of 1934? Well, again, we see a signal here for June, not too bad. We've got a blocking signal close to Iceland and generally to the north of us, so that's bringing the wind in that sort of a direction. Which, I mean, it's not going to be overly warm, but because it's June, it's high summer, so it's going to have, the sun's going to have strength to it. So quite a pleasant looking month in June 1934. July also not looking too bad either, with this weak area of above average heights over UK and still some above average heights to our north as well. So they look like a decent pair of months, June and July 1934. But August, it all goes a bit wrong, with below average heights centering over the top of the UK, and so we do something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. So it looks like that's the best summer that we've had, really, overall so far, summer of 1934. This is how the reanalysis looks for that summer. Above average heights to the north, below average heights to the south. Remember, there's a lot of intra-month variation going on. I don't think, particularly the early part of the summer, don't think that's too bad. Then we go through to 1945. So this is how things look on the 1st of April, Easter Sunday, 1935. A strong zonal flow here, with above average heights to our south and below average heights up to the north. We pull up this quite warm southwesterly wind. That would have been a very nice Easter Sunday, I would have thought. This is how the reanalysis looks for the summer of 1934. We stick this area below average heights, low pressure over top of the country in June, with above average heights to our south. Quite an unsettled month, therefore, but I would have thought relatively warm as well. That's July 1945. Now, this is a nice month, actually. This is a very warm month, with above average heights to our north, below average heights to our south, bringing in easterly winds. Those winds could well be quite hot winds at times during July 1934. And then August 1945, I should say, and then August 1945 looks like that, with low pressure up to the north, high pressure through the UK, and low pressure to the south again. And bringing in the winds from that sort of direction. So it looks like it was probably quite an easterly summer. I think that's a relatively warm summer in 1945, but with this below average heights area to our south, with below pressure to our south, I think probably very thundery in August 1945. And then, if we can, we're going to try and go through to, so I'm not sure quite what's happening, so there we go. So we're going to try and go through to the full summer chart for 1945 next, and this is how it looks. The summer of 1945 comes out like that, with below average heights quite weakly across the west of Europe, and above average heights to the north. And we're doing something like that, flowing with jet stream. That's a fairly decent summer, I think, in 1945. Then our last year is 1956. So this is the 1st of April, 1956, Easter Sunday, 1956 as well, the 2 days combined. Last time this happened until today, quite extraordinarily. So this one, very dry, very anticyclonic, high pressure, sitting there right over the top of the UK. So a very dry and probably very pleasant Easter Sunday and 1st of April, and I suppose April Fool's Day as well on the 1st of April 1956. What about the summer of 1956? Well, if you know your weather history, and I'm sure most of you do, you know what this summer is all about. So June 1956 looks like that, with above average heights to our west, below average heights over to the east of the country. That's the position of the flow and of the jet stream. A cool and unsettled month in June 1956, but it gets worse. This is July 1956, with just low pressure really from the Atlantic into Europe as well. There's a blocking signal emerging up here. The jet stream is going to our south. That's a very bad summer month in July 1956. But it gets even worse. This is August 1956, which is one of the coldest and wettest Augusts of the 20th and indeed of the 21st century as well, with this huge trough stuck there right over the UK and much of northern and central Europe. The blocking signal is around Greenland. The jet stream doing something like that. It's as bad as it gets. August 1956 is up there with the absolute sort of depths of terrible summer months that we have had in the 20th and the 21st century. There's no being about the bush about August 1956. The overall summer reanalysis for the summer of 1956 looks like that, with below average heights very much centering over the UK, much of northern, western Europe, and the flow and the jet stream is doing something like that. That's a really bad summer in 1956 to end us off with these analogues. So let's bring the months together then. This is how June looks when you combine all of these years. So it's only 7 years to combine. There's 1866, 1877, 1888, 1923, 1934, 1945, and finally 1956. This is how June looks on average when you put all those years together. So it's a signal for a weak area of below average heights to be close to the UK, but also above average heights in the Atlantic and a little bit over Central Europe as well, which means that it can be unsettled, but overall, probably there are some anticyclonic signals within these Junes. However, this is how July looks when you put all of these years together, and quite apparently and obviously it's a much more unsettled signal. We've got a signal for blocking to be to our north overall, with below average heights and a very deep area below average heights at that over and to the south, and also going on to the cold side of the jet when you combine those 7 Julys. And then the Augusts are just as bad, if not worse in some respects, because the area of blocking becomes centered around Greenland, which is never a good place in summer. It means that we stick this area of low pressure. The trough is centered almost over the top of the UK, and again the jet stream is down there, of course. And so what we can say there, quite interestingly, is that June, and this is something that's been showing up a little bit in the 2 other analogues updates that we've done so far, June possibly holds the greatest chance of being a little bit on the drier side of things, and maybe a little bit on the warmer side of things too, but then deterioration July and August, which is something that's been showing up a lot in our analogues. And then if you combine all of those months, so all of the Junes, all of the Julys, all of the Augusts, over the 7 years of 1866, 1877, 1888, 1923, 1934, 1945, 1956, this is what you come out with. A strong blocking signal up there, below average heights down there. And it is overall, it's only 7 years to go, so that's the caveat. It's not a big range of years within the package, but overall, it looks as though when Easter occurs on the 1st of April, it's probably a signal for an unsettled summer to follow it. Finally, we've just got a bit of a table here summing things up. We can go a few years further back for when April the 1st has occurred with Easter Sunday. So we can only go back to 1866 for the reanalysis, but it has happened, or it did happen, a few times before 1866, which we can't reanalyze because the charts that we use to do the reanalysis and the Historic Archive at West Central only goes back to 1850, so we can't go back to these other years. But we've also got, if we was to follow this back, if we was able to follow it back, if you like, we've also got 1804, 1736, 1725, and finally 1714, where April the 1st and Easter Sunday have combined. And of course down here we've got the years we've just been looking at: 1866, 1877, 1888, 1923, 1934, 1945, 1956. These are the June, July and August CTs of those years, going back from 1714 just there and down to 1956 just there. And these CTs are compared to 81 to 2010 anomalies, and it does show up, I think, just about what we've been discussing. So the June column is interesting because you'll see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 years there showing up that are a little bit above the 81 to 2010 average, whereas we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 years that are below the 2081 to 2010 average. So it does look as though overall, and this is true even if we go back beyond 1866 to these first 4 years, it does look as though overall June can be, not guaranteed, but it can be a rather warmer month. Whereas July's column looks like that. So we have, yes, we do have some very warm July. We have a hot July in 1714 coming out at 18.0. We also have a very warm July in 1923. And also a hot July in 1934 as well. I thought 1934 looked like a fairly decent summer, and that's what we see there. So we do get some hot Julys, but there's more blue showing up on this column for July than we have for June. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 Julys there that are coming out colder than average. But it gets worse for August. Look at the August column. We only have one red number, which is 1736, with a August CT of 17.8. All of the other Augusts are coming out with these analogues are coming out at or below 16 degrees. So somewhere around the 15s or even down to the 14s or 13s. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 12 of the Augusts are coming out below the 81 to 2010 average, with just that one August showing up in 1736 coming out above the 81 to 2010 average. Now, it's not a big range of years that we're going on here, so that is the caveat. It's not a huge range within the Analogues package, but nevertheless, it's a reasonably strong signal, and it backs up, interestingly, and this is why we decided to run with this, because it backs up the analogues that we already looked at, which suggests that overall, whilst it's not guaranteed, overall it looks as though June possibly holds the greatest prospect, again not a guarantee, but possibly holds the greatest prospect of being a drier and warmer month, but deterioration as we go deeper into the summer, and particularly for August, it does look quite concerning. Right, so that's your rather topical third Summer 2018 Analogues update done. I hope you found it interesting, informative, something very, very different and unusual. Just go show what you can do with these analogues. They're always fun to play around with and come up with new ideas and directions that you can go in. And the most extraordinary thing, I think, really, is the fact that Easter Sunday, occurring on the first day of April, is such an unusual event, and as I say, it's very hard to believe that it hasn't happened since 1956. So we are experiencing something very rare today for today's Easter Sunday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Easter. Thanks so much for tuning in on your Easter day. Later on, we're going to have a GWV Sunny Roundup, so have a look at that if you can. This video will be placed on the summer updates and forecast page later on today with an extensive written report going over everything that we discussed. And tonight, 7 o'clock, somebody will be winning our prize, so come back for that if you're entered, or even if you haven't, do have a look and see who the winner is. But at 36 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.